So we live? We are live. Thank you. So very, very, it is a very warm evening, very warm welcome to the main shrine room of the London Buddhist Centre for the Tuesday night meditation class. I'm here with Sraddhagita, who in a while will be talking about impermanence as a path to freedom. And I'm also here with Jahit and Fajiro. So it's really, we're very, very grateful to you for coming in. Actually, like we can't do these, we obviously can't do these classes without technical support. So it's very nice to have you both here. I'm actually very much looking forward to tonight's talk and meditation. I'm not quite sure why, but I am. And but I thought maybe I'll start by just recapping what we've done so far. So we started 2 weeks ago with a talk by Impermanence on how your life affects your meditation. Really coming at the kind of classic Buddhist approach of ethics being first. And he talked quite a lot about conscience, having a kind of clear conscience about what one is doing, whether it's kind of well, the Buddhist term would be skillful or unskillful, but it'd just be whether it feels right, whether it's something that sits right with us. And then yesterday I talked about how meditation, not yesterday, last week I talked about how meditation affects your life. So again, it's following the classic path of ethics and meditation, and then in the next 3 weeks we come on to wisdom. So we're coming on to some more sort of insight-related reflections. And tonight, Sraddhagita, as I said, will be starting off with anicca, impermanence, so reflections on impermanence, and particularly, well, the title is as a path to freedom, but I'm not quite sure what Sraddhagita will bring in, but I'm sure it will be very good. So that's why I'm looking forward to it. So I don't know. There's much more to say. Oh, we haven't even welcomed people, have we? I've gone straight in without saying hello. So do
Well, I know Matrajit from Pune is here.
Okay. Yeah. Do post where you're from and say hello to people. Yeah. And come and give wave. So Sraddhagita will wave from her, and Jahit and Fajiro, maybe you can come around as well, just in turn maybe, or different angles to say hello, so you get a sense of who is here. So I probably won't repeat that. Hopefully most people are here anyway. But yeah, do say hello, and I can say hello back. We can say hello back, or you can say hello to your friends. And so if Jahit and Fajiro can let me know who's saying hello, and have a few minutes of that.
So we have Anne from Woodford Green.
Hi, Anne from Woodford Green. Very nice to have you here.
Gerdit from Port Talbot.
Oh yeah, Gerdit from Port Talbot. You're also here for Qigong. That's very nice. Yeah.
From Wales.
We love Port Talbot, Wales. Yeah.
And we have Sophie from Harrogate.
Hi, Sophie from Harrogate. I think Sophie was here for Qigong too. If not for Qigong, for the morning meditation. Anyway, it's great that you're here.
We also have Kim from Hackney.
Hi, Kim.
And Sue from West Wickham in Bromley.
Yeah. Hi, Sue. All these names are pretty familiar from one context or another. I think I never quite worked out with West Wickham. Oh, near Bromley is West Wickham.
West Wickham near Bromley, yeah.
Is that right? Oh, yeah. Because I was wondering whether it was near High Wycombe, but it isn't, is it? Okay.
We have Paul Perrin from Sidcup, Kent.
Paul. Hello again. Very nice to see Paul. Paul's pretty regular. Also Qigong. Maybe a yogi too, I don't know. Good.
Elizabeth Ashley from Brighton.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
From Brighton. Again, like very familiar. Hi Elizabeth, nice to have you here this evening.
Someone's just said it's the Qigong crew.
It's a Qigong crew, yeah. Good, that's good. Hopefully, actually, if it's just a Qigong crew, that's a classy lot. So We'll take you. Okay, let's begin. Maybe I'll just repeat what I said a bit earlier when I jumped the gun a bit with just to say that we've been looking at it's a 5-week series where we're looking at how meditation affects your life, or how life affects your meditation, how meditation affects your life in the first 2 weeks, corresponding to the really important foundation of ethics, and then meditation as a way to clarify our minds, to prepare our minds for the next 3 weeks, where we'll be exploring more insight-related practices, and starting tonight with anicca, with impermanence, and Sraddhagita is going to give a talk about impermanence, and then lead a meditation on impermanence. And I'll just give you an idea of what the evening will look like if you're not familiar already. So we'll have in a minute we'll have about a 15-minute metta meditation to settle. Then I'll hand on to Sraddhagita, who will give a talk for about 20-25 minutes. We'll have a 5-minute break, about half an hour, 25 minutes, half an hour, led meditation on impermanence, and then there'll be time at the end for questions and answers. So that's the shape of the evening. We'll finish at 8:30, let's start. Let's not hang around anymore. Let's start with a meditation. So good. That's very nice. Have you dimmed the lights? So just if you set yourself up into a comfortable posture, as comfortable as you can be. And I'll start by ringing the bell. So we'll do a 3-step metta bhavana. So in the first stage, bringing metta, friendliness, kindliness to ourselves. And then we can bring a good friend to mind in the second stage, and then spread out to all beings. So it's an abbreviated metta bhavana. And as always, just taking a little bit of time to settle. So we can allow our mind some space. Be aware of the sounds around us. And the contact with the earth, so with the floor, with the chair or cushion, whatever we're sitting on. Make sure that the face is soft. So soften muscles around the eyes and the cheek and the jaws. And then beginning to wish ourselves well. Being receptive to how we're feeling, how we are. softening. So we can drop in a phrase like, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, we can just continue to soften around the heart. And now bringing to mind a good friend, just holding them in our awareness. And wishing them well too. And now expanding out to other people in our lives, people we know well or not so well. Wishing them well. So may they be well, may they be happy. May they be free from suffering. And then expanding out to all the beings around us. Wishing all beings well. Softening the distinction between ourselves and other people and other beings. And now beginning to draw the meditation to a close. Relaxing any effort. Bringing our attention back to the body, the sounds around us, contact with the ground. And when you're ready, opening your eyes and preparing to listen to Sraddhagita.
Yeah, do sit, hello, I'm Sraddhagita. Do sit in a relaxed way. You don't need to sit in your meditation posture anymore unless you particularly want to. Feel free to as well if you do want to. How many people have we now got at the class, by the way? 50 or 15?
50,
50, great. Wow, it filled up. 51, great. Oh, that's good. Wonderful. Wow, it's amazing how you can all sort of come into the room without us realising. Yeah, welcome to the class from me as well. Yeah, and so tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about impermanence and, well, as a path to freedom really, but there's so much one could say about impermanence. So I guess what I'm going to try and do is just try and evoke something of impermanence and something of this path to freedom, which one can discover if we really do pay attention to impermanence. So a couple of other words we might like to consider as well as impermanence, which have the same kind of meanings, are inconstancy or instability. So things aren't constant and they aren't stable and they aren't permanent. And there are opportunities in any practice that you do to reflect on impermanence, to reflect on the fact that things aren't constant and they don't stay the same. So, you know, there's so many little things we can be paying attention to. Like just when I opened my eyes after the meditation, I looked at the yellow roses and then I looked at the red gladioli and I looked at the difference between them. And I'd already noticed earlier today that the gladioli are starting to turn, as we might say. So the petals are starting to just sort of shrivel a little bit. So the reason we have all these flowers on the shrine is partly because they're really beautiful. And when we really see them, boy, do we really see them. But we also have them on the shrine as a reminder of impermanence. And it's easy to forget that when we just come along and see the flowers. We can forget why they're actually there. And then sometimes it really strikes us why they're there. So there's so many opportunities. The mindfulness of breathing, I was thinking, which is the practice we're going to be doing after I've spoken. You could see that, and you probably learn that practice as very much as a practice to sort of gather and integrate different aspects of yourself. You can use it as very much a sort of relaxing practice, a calming practice, a practice that leads to tranquility. And of course it does lead to all those things, but it's also an opportunity to really reflect on the breath and the nature of the breath, and to actually begin to investigate that. So some of the things I'm going to say are going to be more like little questions for you to ponder rather than me giving you the kind of all the answers. So, you know, one thing you could investigate or try and become curious about is, well, what is this thing called the breath? What actually is the breath? And can you find a beginning of a breath? If there is a breath, can you find the beginning and can you find the ending? So even those three little things, you know, what is a breath? Can you find the beginning or the beginnings? Can you find the endings? Those three things would be like quite a thing to sort of reflect on, investigate, track, try and find in your meditation practice. That's just one little example. And also, I guess what we're really trying to do in the mindfulness of breathing is feel our breath directly, not as an abstract idea. And then it's like then that question, what is it, really comes alive. So we want to really feel the breath in the body. But as I said, is there such a thing as a breath? You could say there's more of a patterning, or there's more of a sense of, a sensing of sensation. Sometimes there's more of almost a shimmering or a vibration of energy. So yeah, just keep looking for those things. And the breath is subject to change. So we sort of know that it doesn't stay the same. It gives us information about ourselves as well, which show us that we're not the same. So if we're anxious, we feel the breath in one way. When we're more relaxed, we feel it in a different way. So it can mirror to us our own states of mind. And I guess what we can really notice if we really start to pay attention to it is we can notice its subtlety, its delicacy. We can also notice, well, just in a way, how fragile the breath is. It's both this fragile thing, it's so light, isn't it? Which is, it almost makes it sort of, well, it is a bit vulnerable, really. We really see its vulnerability. And maybe we're all much more aware of that just now with, still being in the middle of a pandemic, which has really, it's really shown us that the breath, our life is really susceptible to all sorts of natural things that we, viruses, different things that we may not have really thought were quite as serious before. So yeah, the breath can actually, we could do quite a lot just with the breath. And also, because of this, because the breath is fragile and isn't constant, and at some point it will stop, we do feel that as a source of fear, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, and we also feel that as a real sense of loss, and again, that's not surprising. I'm not going to say much about dukkha this week, that's next week, but also this sense of change is also an opportunity because things begin as well and things change, don't they? So I think one of the things that we need to remember when we're reflecting on impermanence is that we easily reflect on the fact that things are ending, and we don't always look for the beginnings, and we don't always look for just the change which is always happening. Because really when we think about impermanence, we're really talking about a journey of time, or a journey through time. Like another question we could ask ourselves, well, what is this present moment? And what is the past? What is the future? Really interesting things. I was watching a really brilliant film the other night. It's called The Heart of a Dog, and it's by Laurie Anderson. And one of the things that she talks about in the film is she says that you can only, and this might be from her Buddhist teacher, I can't remember if it's from him or from her, but you can only understand your life backwards, but you have to live it forwards. So I really like that. But what does that sort of mean in terms of what is the past? What is the future? What is this moment right now? And I guess what we do is we divide up a lot of time, don't we, into little categories, like even about ourselves, when we're a baby, and then a child, and then an older child, and then a teenager, and then we sort of break down into little segments, I guess, ourselves, and then we do that with other people, and we do that with things as well. But when is it that the teenager becomes the woman or the baby becomes the child? Can we actually find that? I remember many years, quite a long time ago, going to an exhibition at the Tate, and a woman had taken photographs of herself every year for I don't know if it was 20 years. And actually with that, we got a little bit more close to seeing this sense of change, because, you know, each year you would see the sort of the same face, but with a little bit of a change in terms of maybe another line or a little something on the face and the skin. But if she'd have done photographs like of herself as, I don't know, a young woman and then an old woman, I mean, it would have been a much bigger contrast, and it wouldn't have been as interesting. But I remember finding that exhibition really fascinating, and like there were moments when I thought, yeah, that's when she got a bit older, you know, really so much more. So it's very interesting to think about that as well, if we were to take a photograph of ourselves each year and then really look back at those photos. And another thing that I do a lot is I read quite a lot of poems, and I think poetry for me is a very good way of reflecting on impermanence and change. And so many poets write about that, that I think poetry goes really well with these kind of reflections and with meditation. And thinking about impermanence today, I was just thinking, well, the dead are many and the living are few. The Buddha, you know, in his life, his experience of that was quite hidden, so it said, in his lifetime, in the early part of his life. And it wasn't until he left the palace to actually go out into the world that he really started to encounter things like someone who was sick, someone who was old, and then someone who died, or was dead. Luckily, he also saw a fourth sight, which gave him a way to sort of a different path, I guess. He saw a meditator. But, you know, whether we take that literally or not, I guess a lot of the time there is impermanence, but it's sort of hidden from us. Even death in some ways is often hidden from us. And it's not until maybe we ourselves come up against our own impermanence, or someone close to us you know, is ill or dies, that we actually are really forced to sort of look a bit more. And those are real opportunities. And I was remembering I had a serious illness about 12 years ago, and I had to go to the hospital quite a lot. I had to go to Barts, and the tube station there was St Paul's, and I'd got off at that stop so many times, you know, in my life. I've lived in London a long time, and yeah, I'd get off the stop and, you know, I'd just do my normal things and, you know, go to the places I went to. But when I was going to the hospital, what I really noticed when I got off the tube was all the other people going to the hospital. And there were lots of them going to the hospital, all different ages, shapes, sizes, some people quite ill, some people not so ill. But when I'd gone to that tube stop before, and I wasn't going in that direction, I'd never really noticed that. But when I go back now, I can see, yeah, there are people going to the hospital, and there are people going to work or the shop or wherever, and I just feel so much more tuned into that. But it was partly because I was confronted a bit more with my own mortality, I guess. And that, I think, it just opens one's eyes, doesn't it? So yeah, it's good to reflect on those moments when we do notice these things. And I was also thinking of lots of like old photos of all the people, say, in our families, you know, some of whom we don't know their names anymore. All our ancestors have died, you know, we can sort of reflect on all of that. And just sort of almost the wonder of that, all the people that have lived on this earth. I remember my elderly father, who died actually last year. He said to me once, or he wrote me a letter, and he was saying that he'd stood at the corner of this street and he noticed this bus going by, and he really looked at all the people and he thought to himself, I'm never going to see these people again. and yet he felt really connected with them. So it was almost like he had a little moment there of like opening up to impermanence, and opening up to his own impermanence, of course, but then everyone else, and this sense of change and all of that. So I'm going to read us a little poem now, which I think gives us some sort of sense of this. So it's called Encounter, and it's by Czesław Milosi, who's Polish. We were riding through frozen fields in a wagon at dawn. A red wing rose in the darkness, and suddenly a hare ran across the road. One of us pointed to it with his hand. That was long ago. Today, neither of them is alive, not the hare nor the man who made the gesture. Oh, my love, where are they? Where are they going? The flash of a hand, streak of movement, rustle of pebbles. I ask, not out of sorrow, but in wonder. I ask, not out of sorrow, but in wonder. So I think if we reflect on this sort of passage of time and impermanence, we have an opportunity to start to let go a little bit while we're still living. We have an opportunity to die a little bit, die in terms of who we think we really are, so that when death does come, and we know that it will, we don't know when, we have, let go a little bit more, and in that letting go, maybe when it comes to the bigger letting go, we're able to let go a bit more. I don't know about you, but as I've grown older, I feel much more moved to tears. I'm often moved, very moved by things that I see or hear, and I think that's the other thing I want to say about practice. The more we practice, it's not like we're trying to become some sort of block of wood that doesn't feel, that doesn't sort of resonate with the fact that we're all in the same boat in terms of impermanence. It's like we want to love more, but also let go more. And I think when we can do that, then in a way we do experience more freedom. We experience life more vividly when we're able to actually keep letting go, because we're not trying to hold on to things. And there's a kind of clarity, or almost, could even call it a shimmering, of things coming into being and then fading away. We've probably all heard the Dennis Potter Blossomist Blossoms, when he was dying and he looked at this blossom tree outside his window, and he talked about the wondrous of that, the nowness of that, and that he could really see the blossom of the blossom, and he called it the blossomest blossom one could ever see. So it's like his awareness was full of blossom. And I remember that interview so vividly. It still at times can send shivers and tingling up my spine, because he was so sort of alive, and yet he was dying. So I think when we really encounter and take on board impermanence, then there is this opportunity to really open up to things and to see them without quite so many labels, And the freedom that's associated with impermanence, or the vimoksha mukha as it's called, is the signless, which means in a way the labelless. So it's more just being with that sense of vividness, which can really give us clarity and freedom. And I'm just going to read us one more little poem, and then we'll have a little break. So I think the Zen poets really encapsulate this in their poems. Their poems are often like really like a few lines, and they're both ordinary and extraordinarily exquisite, I think. And they capture something of the preciousness and precariousness of life, and this sense of vividness and beauty. So this is one by Isa. Just being alive, miraculous, to be in the cherry blossom's shadow. Miraculous, to be in the cherry blossom shadow. Okay, so they're just a few, in a way, things to get us going on that little reflection, evoking a few things for you to hopefully help you to find your own way into impermanence. And I will lead a meditation after we've had a short, just a few minutes break. So we'll have a 5-minute comfort break. Be back soon. Sit now. Okay, so hello and welcome back. Yeah, good to see you all again. So we're going to do a little bit of meditation now. We're going to do some mindfulness of breathing. One thing that I didn't say, actually, which I meant to say in the talk is, I think one thing as well that we can really bear in mind is that, you know, this thing about what we do outside of meditation, you know, needs to be, in a way, you know, sort of integrating with our meditation, and we need to take the reflections that we do in meditation also into our daily life. And then, you know, things like nature, the flowers on the shrine, all sorts of things can be also pointing us to the same thing as our reflections in meditation, which is impermanence. So, yeah, that's one way of seeing it. And they can also make us see that sort of vividness for ourselves. So anyway, we'll start with a bit of meditation and then we'll answer a few questions. So we'll meditate for about 20 minutes. And during the meditation, I will sort of drop in a few little questions for you to ponder. But we'll just start with just a sense of ourselves sitting here, whatever ourselves actually is. And connecting with the breath. We'll just spend 5 minutes or so just connecting with our breath, and if we need to mark each breath with a number, then do that. But just really giving ourselves time to really gather the awareness around the breath, marking each breath with a number if we want to, and if that helps our concentration. We're really letting ourselves settle. And then just let the breath flow without the counting. Just become aware of the process of the breathing. And just see if you can find a beginning to a breath. And see if you can also find an ending to each breath. Try and bring an attitude of curiosity and interest. Trying to be receptive. You could also try and discover what is the breath, what is a breath? Is it a thing that we can find? And if it is a thing, what kind of thing is it? So keep asking questions. And if it isn't a thing, well then what is it? What's it made up of? And does this experience of breath, or this thing we call breath, Does it stay the same? Moment to moment, breath by breath. And keep looking, keep noticing. And then let your awareness rest just in one place where you feel some sensations, where you maybe feel something of the breath. Just let the awareness rest there. So it might be around the belly or around the nostrils, the upper lip, or somewhere else. Really trying to tune into the breath, the experience we call breath. Tuning into the subtlety, delicacy, that sense of lightness. Maybe even we feel the fragility of the breath. keep noticing what's happening in that little area. And just keep listening there, resting there. And then just broadening out the awareness a bit more to take in the whole landscape of the body. There might be areas that suddenly come very vividly into our awareness. And just giving ourselves a few minutes to just sit quietly. Perhaps reflecting on anything that the breath, if there is a breath, was teaching us, showing us, pointing out to us. This is another short poem, this time by Ryokan. The breath going out, the breath coming in, over and over again, only leaves me to reflect what a fleeting world this is. And then just spending a moment or two just appreciating the efforts that you made. Giving yourself time to come out of the practice. So in a minute, Yanadai is going to join me, and we've got probably about 15 minutes or so. If there's any questions or anything you want to ask about, what I was talking about, or more general things, it's an opportunity to do that, and we'll try and answer your questions. But also do give yourselves, a little pause. Sometimes it takes, it's like you drop in something like a meditation, and then it's a bit like dropping a pebble into a pool of water, isn't it? And you have to just wait for the ripples, wait for the vibrations, or like the rebound. So that, might be, sometimes that's quite quick, but sometimes, often I know from myself it can be a sort of slow ripple. So yeah. You want to come and sit here? What's that?
From this side here.
Yes, so yeah. Is that good on terms of the camera?
I'll put some
Okay. Oh, so do you need to sit behind?
No, yes.
You've got some
here.
marking.
If you could go.
Oh, I see. I've got to move over here. Okay, great. That's fine. I didn't realise. Great. Is that good? How's that?
Even a bit further back, actually.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just going to move this back as well.
There's all different markings in here now.
Yeah.
I can't tell which is which.
Okay.
How's that, Virginia? Is that good?
This way.
You go a bit more, don't you?
Bit more.
Yes.
You can maybe zoom out a little bit as well.
That's as far back as it goes. Into.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
That's good.
Okay, good.
Okay. Any questions?
So there's a question from Mercia.
Mm-hmm.
So she's asked, couldn't find a beginning or end, it's a continuum. If the ego dies when the body dies, does consciousness continue?
You might need to repeat that
Big question. Yeah, big question.
So,
Do you want to say it again one more time?
so I couldn't find a beginning or end, it's a continuum. If the ego dies when the body dies, does consciousness continue?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, are you sure you couldn't find a beginning or an
I
ending?
think we might need to repeat the question, but I'm not sure that
okay.
people will be able to pick that up.
Okay.
So,
Do you
shall
want to repeat it?
yeah, something like, gosh, It was quite a long question.
Yeah, so
So-
she couldn't find a beginning or end.
Okay, so it was from Mercy. So Mercy couldn't find a beginning or an end to the breath.
And if the ego dies, when the body dies,
And if the
does
ego dies
consciousness continue?
when the body does the consciousness continue? Sraddhagita, over to you.
Well, you might have to remind me again of the question. But anyway, I guess, well, that's a big question, isn't it? I mean, in a way, I think why I was saying maybe with the beginnings and endings, it's really easy to make these big leaps from like the breath to consciousness, and like again, it's a big question. But actually, what I guess I would encourage you to do is keep looking for beginnings and endings. Actually, try and take that reflection a bit deeper. So, are you sure there's not a beginning to the breath? Did you check every part of your body? And you can start to really investigate that. I definitely say I think sometimes with reflections it's really easy to come away with just like, oh no, there's no beginning, I can't find one, and then not try again. I guess what we're trying to do is stay curious and keep being curious and keep looking, unless it gets really boring, of course. And then we need to do a new reflection. But in terms of consciousness, well, yeah, I guess something does continue, probably. But what that is, I mean, Buddhism would say it's a bit more like, it's almost like the flame of a candle, being sort of not exactly even passed on, but relighting another candle. That could be an image. I mean, in a way, I think when you go to these kind of questions, for me, I can only think of them, I think, really in terms of images and more sort of poetic type things, because for me that evokes something and suggests something that I don't really know, in a way you could say all of that is quite mysterious. I don't know in my own experience that my consciousness definitely carries on, or will carry on. I can sort of believe that and have faith in that, but I don't really know for sure. Yeah, so I don't know if you've got anything you would add to that.
The only thing that kind of comes to my mind, maybe doesn't even directly address the question, but something that I remember Subhuti talking about on a retreat, that I guess you have like a continuation of experience, and we like this sort of line of, say, like the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and we kind of put a little mark in it at some point and say, well, this is the beginning, this is the end. But what there is in reality is just this continual, I guess, progression of events. So it's not exactly answering your question, but it sort of came to my mind in response to it, that maybe we sort of arbitrarily kind of mark these beginnings and ends, and even the thing about the ego dying at death as well. It's like, what exactly do we mean by that as well? Like, what is the ego? So well, maybe there are. So it's.
I mean, I also wonder, like, I guess if you think about the ego, you would hope that, well, I would hope that if I was trying to practice and reflect on impermanence, that, in a way, I'm loosening my ego, hopefully, as I practice, So in a way, yeah, it is slowly sort of, something's dying, isn't it? I definitely feel that from my practice. So, yeah, death is just one, in a way, one end. But then, because I haven't died and I don't remember it, I can't quite say what the next thing is. Yeah. But I also just want to say that when we, with the whole topic of impermanence, in a way we are reflecting quite a lot on time, and When we come on to the third Lakshana, which we'll be looking at in a couple of weeks' time, that's more in the realm of space, if you like. And I'm not going to try and sort of talk about that now, but it might be that also when we've done all three, you also get a sort of broader perspective. In a way, we start with impermanence because impermanence is a really good way into the other two Lakshanas. And the Buddha actually said that just like the elephant has the deepest and broadest footprint, so too, reflecting on impermanence gives us an opportunity to really go quite broad and quite deep. And that's because, in a way, we could talk to someone, just someone who's never practiced the Dharma and talk to them about impermanence, and they would be able to kind of get that, they'd go, oh yeah, of course, I sort of know that sort of thing. On one level we know it, don't we? But on another level, in our bones, we don't necessarily know it. So, it is a way into the other two Lakshanas, which are going to be talked about as well. So just thought I'd mention that. So we've been focusing on time, but there's also the whole realm of space. I hope that at least, answers to some extent. And sometimes questions lead to more questions and not necessarily answers, but yeah.
So another question from Oliver.
Okay, great, Oliver.
Is impermanence permanent, i.e. the only exception to the rule?
Is impermanent permanent? Is impermanence permanent? Well, I'll ask you that. What do you think?
Oliver, what are you doing? Is impermanence...
Well, I guess we talk about the conditioned being impermanent, and the unconditioned. I guess if we talk about it, again, this isn't something I know from my own experience. The Buddha's experience of enlightenment would have been a stable experience, but at the same time it would have had, I imagine, like deeper and deeper levels, and so in one way it would have been, I'm sure, permanent, but in another way it's also, that permanence isn't a fixed. I think the thing with permanence is it's we easily fix things, and but I think with something that isn't conditioned, that in a way, if that was permanent, it would be a very different thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because I think I agree with. I think that actually it doesn't seem right to say impermanence is permanent, because impermanence kind of goes beyond. It's almost like it goes beyond concept. You're trying to point at something by saying impermanence, but actually what it's pointing at is beyond words. So in that sense, you can't grasp it. So it's not permanent in the sense that you can grasp it or fully take hold of it or posit it as a something to be ultimately relied on. However, it is, you could say, it is a pretty clear mark of conditioned existence. You could say, actually, all things are impermanent. That's, on one level, that's true. So in that sense, it's permanent. But yeah.
But again, I guess it's remembering, like, words and concepts can be helpful, but what is impermanence actually pointing to? It's pointing to an experience of changing, the changing nature. And changing, when you've got the ing, you've got the verb, haven't you? Actually, it's changing, whereas impermanence, again, can almost fix the idea of impermanence in a way that doesn't always help. But good questions.
Yeah.
Tricky questions. I'd like to ask some of you, actually, what did you notice when you, besides when you were looking at the beginnings and endings, was there anything you sort of noticed in your experience. Maybe someone might like to share a direct experience. In the meantime, there may be a question, but someone might want to. Just think that could be interesting. There might be other questions. If you do want to read any other ones out, Vajira, feel free.
So there's one from Natalie. It's a bit slightly off topic maybe, but how can we strengthen practice in difficult times?
So that's the question is how can we strengthen the practice in difficult times?
You mean, does Natalie mean meditation practice? General practice? I guess in a way, how do we strengthen practice in difficult times? Well, one thing is keep practicing. In a way, I guess it's often in difficult times that we, don't want to practice, or we want to almost walk out on ourselves and practice, but that's when we really need it. So how we strengthen it, I guess, is to learn to practice through the difficult, challenging times and the times that feel more easeful. And then we learn to practice in any situation, and we build our own sort of strength. It's like, if we only practice metta when we feel kind and open and warm and friendly. I mean, in a way, it's not really a practice in that way, is it? We need to practice metta when we, feel like a bit resistant or really aren't, not feeling very mettaful. And then we can develop more sort of strength, and then metta, for example, becomes a really robust practice. Not just, a sort of warm, open. It gives you strength. I suppose that's what we want. We want those practices to give us strength. Yeah.
Yeah. What it makes me think of is we've been studying recently the ten infallibles from, I think it's Gampopa, a Tibetan teacher, and one of them is to kind of remember the pith instructions of your teacher and to practice them with mighty force. So there's something about if you know what you need to do, it's just really putting as much of ourselves behind it as possible. So just applying a little bit more, being clear about this is helpful, and therefore why don't I do it, and why don't I do it with sufficient intent. So maybe what we can all do is just do what we do with just a little bit more energy, vigour and conviction. Yeah,
and I think also have quite a broad view of what practice actually is. So practice isn't just what we do here on these cushions and mats, because most of us, we can't spend that many hours in the day meditating. It needs to come off our cushions, doesn't it? And it needs to inform our lives, so that in a way our whole life is our practice. And that's when I think, you feel and you can draw a lot of strength from practice. So keep thinking of ways that you can bring it into your daily life, so that it's not so separate, I guess. So it's just your life then. It's not practice and your life. Yeah.
So a few people have shared their experience.
Oh, great.
So Olga said, the reflection made me realise that my perception of myself is impermanent. And Sophie has shared that I felt like the more I focused on my belly moving in and out, the less I felt it. It was bizarre. Is that something quite prominent in my awareness, how the breath moves my belly? Kim shared, I noticed my breath change and became deeper as I followed it. And Anna has said, I felt more aware of pleasure in my breath located in the chest area.
Great.
And Anna has said, it's hard to explain the experience of breath. It's a cycle. It goes round in a loop. It's like a water wheel. I did think how the breath, when we fear something, that made me think of vulnerability.
Yeah. That's a lovely image actually of the water wheel, isn't it? I think there's a poem by Rumi when he talks about this water wheel and just, that thing of the water coming in and going out and this cycle, and that's just a lovely image. It's beautiful because we are we're sharing the air that becomes our breath, aren't we? And the water wheel is that same sort of image of sharing the water and giving it away. It's like that's what we're doing. It's like we're borrowing, really, the breath, the air. It's not ours.
I like those examples that people gave.
Yeah,
It seemed like you really were paying attention to the breath, to the actual experience of the breath, and I think that's the key thing, isn't it? To really pay attention to what's actually going on. And I really love the poem, the Polish poem about the wonder as well, the wonder of impermanence and having the wonder of that. So that sounds great.
So do we need to?
Oh yeah. Wrap up.
We need to wrap up.
So shall I wrap up?
Yeah.
This week?
Why don't you wrap up?
So that's it for this evening. I want to thank Jahit and Fajiro for coming in and doing tech. It's really, really great. And Sraddhagita for a really wonderful talk. I thought it was so kind of light and airy actually, as well as being sort of kind of profound and very individual as well. I thought very, very kind of unique. You brought really kind of something of you into that topic. So thank you very, very much. So we'll be back next week, exploring the Lakshan of the condition mark of dukkha, of suffering. So do come back for that. And just to say again that we do all the classes we do are given freely. You're more than welcome to partake of them freely. But we also very much appreciate any support that you can give us financially in order to keep the centre going and to keep the classes coming. So say that too. All right.
So we'll put a link in the chat box, and if you want to just click on that link, that would be great.
Great, thanks for that. Good. All right, I think that's a good night for me.
Yeah, and a good night from me. And just keep reflecting on the nature of breath, and is there a breath, etc., etc.
Yeah, maybe for the rest of the week as well. Really carry the reflection on impermanence. If we can remember just to carry that throughout the week, just to be aware of the breath, of change, of our actual experience of change.
Because also it's really easy to think, I've done that reflection now. But, in a way, that's just the top layer, and there's lots more you can reflect on. So, keep reflecting.
Cool.